Hey folks, Anthony here. Sorry about that, with livingtheend.com. Self-concept. You've heard that phrase thrown around all over the internet. All over law of attraction, law of assumption. You've heard of self-concept. And some people say that self-concept is not important. Some people say that self-concept is important and it's the only thing. The latter one is closer to the truth than the first one. If you don't have a healthy self-concept, you're not going anywhere. If you don't think that you can accomplish something, it's not going to happen for you. I don't care if you think and know that God is all powerful. It's not going to happen for you. So you need to understand that the self-concept is what powers, or let me back up. It's not what powers, because the first I am is actually what powers your self-concept. Okay, it's what pushes out the identity that you have chosen, and then it pushes it out into the screen of space. Some people call it the screen of life, and then that is then reflected back to you because of the assumptions, perceptions, and conceptions that you have of yourself and the world around you. So that second I am is that identity or self-concept, the conception that you have of yourself and the world around you, that is reflected back to you. Okay? So many of us have already heard how the self-concept is given. Between the ages of 0 and 7, we are just a big, huge sponge. And our caregivers, our mothers, our fathers, the people that are around us that cared for us when we were little, are the ones that we got most of our self-concept from. That and our peers, TV shows that we've watched, news outlets, teachers, friends. That's where we've gotten our self-concept from. And most of that is all limiting. It's all very, very limiting and to a large extent, very negative. Which is why most of us don't live the life that we really, really want. And I was no exception. Some people know my story, and so I'm a very private person. So if you do know my story, then you know that I didn't have a very good life when I was little. English is not my first language. And most of you would be shocked to find out what my first language is, because I don't look like that. So anyway, I had to change the conception that I had of myself for me to even talk to people, let alone coach people in being who they want to be. And like I said in the very first video, I've been on this self-improvement journey for more than 30 years. My daughter just turned 36 on last Wednesday. And so that gives you an idea how young I am. And so I've seen it all. I've read all the books. I've been to all the seminars. I've seen all the coaches. I know what's happening out there in the world. I've been to psychiatrists and psychologists long ago. Not to knock those professions, but I found a better and easier way for me. And so I realized that my self-concept was extremely important. Regardless of what I thought about anything else. It was the key to my success. Now, I also know that the force that animates all of us, that energy that everything in this entire universe is made of, is the force that drives us all. And I know that energy is intelligent. There have been books written about that force. Some people call it the All, some people call it Source, some people call it God. That Source, that God, is all love. And I will actually, for those who want to actually get into it, I will actually make a video. I'm going to make it private. It'll be on my on the private Facebook group that we have. And at some point, I'll get the links up there so you guys can get to it. On what the Bible really is. Man has taken the knowledge out of that Bible, has chopped it up for his own vices, for his own strength and power, so that he could be dominant over men. You know, there's a really good movie out. It's graphic in some cases. It's an apocalyptic movie. But there's a movie in it with Denzel Washington called The Book of Eli. And in that movie, there is a character in it who runs a town, and his whole basis of being there, running that town, is to find this book. And that book just happens to be the Bible. Because that man knew just how powerful that book was. He knew what that book was. And so if you knew what that book really was, the world's first and best self-help book ever, then you would read it as such and understand it as such. But we'll get off of that because we'll come back to it at another point in time. But your self-concept, what you believe about yourself and the people, places, things, and circumstances around you, is what forms your self-concept. That forms the assumptions and perceptions and conceptions that you have of you and everyone in your reality and everything in your reality. That self-concept is what creates the life that you now have. Part of that self-concept is to understand who you really are. That you have God in you. You have that infinite intelligence in you. You have that source in you that created everything. And then that source has empowered you with the power to create whatever life you want of yourself. That's the power that you were given when you were born. I call it the God power. I call it the God state. I've heard of different other states, the Queen state, the King state, the hero state, the this state, the that state. But anytime you give an identifier that's less than all powerful, you are putting limitations upon that identifier. And with God, or with the source of all, or the infinite intelligence, there is no limitations. There are none. And so that's the first thing that you need to understand. You need to understand that you are that infinite intelligence, that you are that God. Once you understand that, there is nothing that's impossible to you. Nothing. If you can believe it, you can achieve it. Another thing that I tell my clients all the time is garbage in, garbage out. I don't remember where I heard that from. It was 30 years ago when I heard it. But nothing could be truer. You sit and you listen to people that all they do is sit and watch the news. My mother was like that. My mother, all she did was watch the news 24/7. That's all she didn't watch any other TV shows, just the news. And she was, at towards the end of her life, she was probably one of the most bitter, unhappy people ever. She was a lovely human being. She really was. She would give you anything. She would give you the shirt off of her back. But because she fed her mind with nothing but news, she became a very bitter person. And so I tell my clients all the time, garbage in, garbage out. If you're hanging around people that are negative, they talk bad about other people all the time, they do this, do that, that's what you're going to end up being. That's why Neville Goddard said, always think upon lovely things, good things, things of good rapport. That's what you fill your mind with. It's the same thing with food. Some people call it mental diet and stuff like that. And that's fine. But it's the same thing with food. If you shove your face with a bunch of fatty food, a bunch of fried chicken, a bunch of cakes and stuff like that, and candy and whatnot, you're not going to live a long, healthy life. You're not going to be that energetic person. You're going to be taking insulin shots and trying to go on fad diets and stuff, and it's just not going to be good for you. And the same thing with your mind. Your mind is important to you. Stop feeding it with all this negative stuff that's out there. Okay? So the self-concept. What you think of, what you assume, is what ends up being your life. If you think you can't accomplish something, then that's what it is. If you have a fear about something and you worry about it all the time, that's what's going to show up in your life. If you're like, you ever have one of those friends or know a person that was just always happy? They were just excited about life all the time. And it's like everything happened good to this person. I mean, everything. Everything fell into place for him. Everything was grand and fantastic for him and stuff. I had a friend like that. Drove me up the wall at first. Because I said, dude, man, they're always so happy. Why? Oh, isn't life great? He was just one big smile all the time. It seemed like nothing bothered him. And all the rest of us kids, we were all negative and stuff, running around and, Johnny stole my marble. Nothing ever went wrong for this kid. When he grew up to be an adult, he succeeded in everything he tried. Everything. He didn't let his mind focus on bad. He didn't worry about anything. It wasn't because he had this great, fantastic life. His parents weren't rich. His parents were just like our parents and stuff. But the one thing that was different about his parents than most of our other parents is they never tried to protect him and tell him he could not accomplish something. And that stuck with me when I found out. And that's what I did with my daughter. I told my daughter, first of all, never be afraid to ask a question. And nothing is impossible to you. That's what I told her all the time. And that's what I tell every single one of my clients. Now, I do tell them, don't initiate questions to your SP that's not where you guys aren't talking or anything like that, and don't ask questions that you may not want the answer to, because you're going to get that answer if you're not coming from a place of power. Self-concept, folks. Self-concept is where it's at. You can manifest easily and instantly from the God state. But I found that people have a hard time believing that. But once I get them to believe it and understand it, by repetition of them continually going back to the fact that they are that God state, and to be aware of the fact that they are, to be aware of how they're thinking, to be aware and know that if they're thinking in the wrong way, the undesired way, that they can turn from that undesired way and then go directly to the state of the wish fulfilled. That is when things start to change for them. That is when that self-concept starts working for them. But not until. Thanks for listening, folks, and remember, you've got this.